The must-own game for the Nintendo 64, Star Fox 64, started from the ashes of Star Fox 2, the original sequel to Star Fox on the Super Nintendo. But as the game was coming out rather late in 1995, when the competition of Sony's PlayStation and Sega Saturn were sporting robust 3D graphics versus Star Fox 2's lower grade 3D, making it look outdated. Top that off with it also requiring the new Super FX 2 chip to be included that only would raise the price. As such, producer Shigeru Miyamoto cancelled the game, and from that decision, a game was now planned for the new Nintendo 64 instead. And while steady, its development still went through much evolution, from plans for more underwater sections to unused weapons and very different looking stages. Today on Cut Content, we explored the history and cut content of Star Fox 64. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell too to further support us and keep creating new videos. Star Fox 64's development officially began in 1995 after the move to cancel Star Fox 2 happened. Despite cancellation, much of the new features of Star Fox 2 were planned to be carried over into this game. Or as Miyamoto put it best, it's roughly 60% Star Fox 1, 30% Star Fox 2, and only 10% of it is wholly new content. A number of the new features from Star Fox 2 that were brought over include all-range mode, and that comes with Team Starwolf, which was also set to appear in that game originally. On top of that, multiplayer mode was added too. The initial plan was in fact a larger focus on gameplay instead of story. Therefore, Miyamoto chose to make the game a retelling of Star Fox on the Super Nintendo, and this may have influenced the initial and earliest known title of the game, which was Star Fox: The Cosmic Crisis, as found within the leaked assets from the then July 2020 GigaLeak of its assets. Found within the leak as well is the earliest known promotional poster made for the game that features what appears to be the earliest take of the R-Wing for this N64 game. In this case, they look much more like their SNES counterparts before they transitioned to the final model. However, despite that focus on gameplay, the presentation mattered a lot to Miyamoto. Outside of cancelling Star Fox 2 and jumping to the N64 instead for business decisions, Miyamoto wanted to take advantage of the N64's power to make an even better game. This meant actual detailed levels, cinematics, and on top of that, voice acting. Miyamoto was a fan of an old space and aircraft related British show called Thunderbird that famously used puppets for its characters. Due to the way they were animated, Miyamoto took inspiration from this show to have the characters appear in portraits on the bottom of the screen and replicate such movements when they spoke. This also doubled as a way to save on making detailed animations too. And by having such a feature, casual banter was even developed between both the crew and enemy, both for dramatic tight situations and even comedic timing. But after developing Star Fox 64 throughout the year, it was finally shown off together with the Nintendo 64's reveal at the Nintendo Shoshinkai event in December 1995. It was a very brief showcase together with a variety of games. The scene shown off is from the first level of the game, Corneria, a very different looking Corneria. The level that is normally pretty colorful with rich green grass is very white all over. The idea may have been that they were going to Corneria in the midst of winter here. Outside of this T-shaped building at the start, the stage layout was rather different too. This includes these gates that line up along this highway in a rather close manner, unlike the final games. This was influenced by the Japanese red gates known as tories, which Shigeru Miyamoto was inspired to put into Star Fox originally, as people would want to go through them, though torii-like gates were still elsewhere in the level of the final game. As well, there was what appears to be a cut robot enemy, and the actual final boss of the level appearing right smack in the middle of the city, rather than right after the city like in the final game, having the brighter hue of red too. More of this level was later shown off at E3 1996 too, showcasing that Corneria, which normally began flying over water, had no water in this build. Potentially it was frozen over? While not seen in these early pieces of footage, a cut line was also found within the data of the game meant for Corneria, said by Peppy.
"Don't be doing anything foolish."
Now, one very obvious thing seen in this footage here is the HUD, and how different it looked. The earliest is a very simple HUD that simply shows your shield in the barest way possible. This was quite possibly always meant as a placeholder from the get-go, as by E3 1996 it did get quite a facelift. This time the shield icon had a nice neat circular design and a neat new boost meter was added too. As well, the intercom was more centered rather than on the left. Might be a carryover from the previous HUD which had the shield on the bottom left taking up the space. The E3 1996 trailer is followed by the December 1996 Shoshenkai trailer, showcasing an even more updated HUD, now with a combination of both text and that old HUD before removed for the final revision of the HUD menu. In fact, these literal texts were later found within the data. These include one for the pause menu, one for the hit counter, one for when using your bomb, your shield, and a standalone boss text. Though found within the data of the final game, it seems that they had eventually built a boss meter that was connected with that boost meter HUD of that time. An odd design choice, but might be why it was changed in the end. But top that off with also the numbers and symbols used to display the hit counter and lives. But as well, there were these nifty ones featuring letters that would appear next to your shield gauge as seen in these old screenshots. But these letters were each for one member of the Star Fox team, so maybe they showcase who was with you on that very mission or who was still alive? And a few more miscellaneous HUD items such as an old life icon, bomb logo, and transmission icons, as well as this charge meter, which might have filled up when charging your lasers, and a map border for the radar. But moving on and returning to the E3 1996 trailer, it starts off showing us an early look at the stage selection screen, with the planets laid out in a very different way back then. In the July 2020 leak, we also had these vertical images of Fox and General Pepper that appear to be accompanied with the planet selection screen. It may have been how the original mission briefings looked, as opposed to the horizontal images used in the final game. There aren't any for the other Star Fox members, but maybe only Fox was being briefed as he was the team leader. But following that, we return to the December 1996 trailer that starts off with the opening cutscene, which was different in comparison to the final versions. This had different camera angles for the R-Wings, Fox, and Peppy. That and the Great Fox can be seen without its logo back then. But continuing with that trailer, more levels are shown that showcase some contrast and differences to the final games. Sector-wise, the first one we see with a notable change. In this case, it comes in the form of the Shogun mech that had more simplistic textures. This is followed by Titania, which didn't have its noticeable orange hue from the final game. Peppy is also seen here with unused dialogue stating, "I remember this from 10 years ago." Considering Peppy's history of being a part of Fox's father's crew, James McCloud, this might have been a reference to the fact that they fought this boss back then. Zonus is the next area seen here, which looks wildly different from the final games. The final game shows off a Zonus that is very contaminated, which is even stated in its lore, but here it is still very lush and blue. I imagine that they may have simply changed that due to the fact that the previous level, Aqua's, was also a water level. However, we do also see a character transmission here that appears to be glitched. While it's hard to say who this truly was, as whoever it was trying to hide their identity, they do however say, "I found Star Fox, Captain." The Captain of course being the boss of Zonus, and his portrait definitely looked quite different compared to the final games. Next is the Meteo level, which has the boss Meteo Crusher. It had a more pink circular attack sent your way. Now outside of this trailer, a notable stage to mention is Katina, which has a fair bit of cut content from it. Initially, it seems that dog soldiers that you see at the end of the game were to be in this level as guest pilots alongside the Star Fox crew, as their portrait was found here. It's also quite possible that this was who was going to accompany the team originally in place of Bill in that level. Speaking of Bill, he also had 2 cut voice lines in this level.
Stick around for a while. Here's something for you, Fox.
But bigger than that is that Star Wolf's bank is found within Katina, even though it isn't ever used. This may indicate that another Star Wolf battle was planned here too, and considering the whole battle is in all range mode, Starwolf appearing would have made a lot of sense. Now, while Aquas itself doesn't have any known changes to it, its history is interesting in that originally Miyamoto wished to make the R-Wing transform into a sort of humanoid mech unit. Likely an evolution of the walkers that were set to appear in Star Fox 2. The team hated that idea, and in response made the Landmaster tank and the Blue Marine submarine. The Blue Marine famously appeared in the Aquas level, but there were actually plans to make multiple levels for it to appear in. Maybe the original idea of Zone S before it became a toxic wasteland was to be one of those levels. And of course we have some cut dialogue by Peppy regarding the Blue Marine.
Enemy behind! Descend!
Now, Fortuna doesn't have much known about its beta content, but it seems that there was a Starwolf line cut from it when defeated.
I will not be defeated by this trash!
This also stays true with Sector X, with 2 pieces of dialogue found for Slippy and Peppy.
Something's not right!
I got tagged! My ears are still ringing!
As well, a beta version of Area 6 also exists within the data. It's unfinished, except it contains the worm enemy from Meteo. However, the level is unfinished as it has no endpoint, therefore it is unbeatable. Now, Venom 1 has an unfinished variation as well. This version is very short, unfinished, and kinda glitchy. It may have been originally designed as a quick way to get to Venom 2. And the Venoms also have their own cut dialogue too.
I'm beaten up pretty bad!
Now, within that trailer from December 1996, we do also see an early version of the multiplayer mode. While nothing too grandly different, there was no boost meter back then, the health meter looked different, and the ship icon on the radar was bigger. Now, within the data of the game, there was an unused orange engine light. Normally, red is used for ground levels, blue and space levels, and green is used by the enemy. With there being a 4th unused orange one, there is a theory that this 4th color designation may have been intended for each member of the Star Fox team originally, which could have been played into multiplayer mode that way. Now, there are a few cut weapons and abilities found within the data. First is for the dual red laser attack. Normally, you use blue lasers, with the charged ones being green. Starwolf has the ability to use a red laser, but it's a single laser blast, not a dual laser blast. So this red laser may be a cut weapon. However, the E3 1996 trailer did show off Fox shooting a dual red laser for some instances of it, while his default was green. Considering it is a dual red laser versus the green singular one shown, it's possible this is a leftover from the old laser upgrade that was color-coded red unlike the final games. In fact, in the December 1996 trailer, it does show the laser upgrade in a purple shade too, showing how they changed its color once more. But interestingly enough, the pickup item for the laser looked different too, with it being a circular ball with an L on it back then. Now on bolts, there were these special shields that were used by enemies that Team Star Fox never gets access to. However, it seems they were programmed to be usable too by Fox, but stayed unused. Using a code, you can activate it, and it works as intended with not taking any damage or losing lives. Even works with the Landmaster and Blue Marine, even if the shield is invisible. Interestingly, it was made available in the 3D version of the game at long last, as a multiplayer power-up. Now throughout these trailers, the barrel roll did evolve quite a bit. Originally in the E3 96 trailer, it was missing all its effects, which for being an offensive defense, it wouldn't have looked that effective. Later in the December 1996 trailer, it did get some of its particle effects, which started to look closer to final games but still off. Now to top this off, aside from specific audio for specific levels, there were a handful of unused audio that could be used anywhere. Going quickly through them.
I'm going right! I'm going left! I'm going up! I'm going down! Falco! Peppy! Are you okay? I'm going right! I'm going left! I'm going up! I'm going down! Hold A to lock onto the enemy! To get rid of the aim, pause and press R! Press C left to boost! Press down and C left to do a somersault! For a U-turn, press down and C down! Press B to bomb! Press C down to brake! To hover, press Z and R!
Position confirmed. Everything okay? Good job.
Great, Fox! Haha, try and stop me! I'm going up! I'm going down!
As the game was about to launch, Nintendo started to heavily promote the game. One major way was through a giveaway of a promotional video to Nintendo Power subscribers in order to showcase the game's cinematic presentation, voice acting, and use of the new Rumble Pack, an add-on for the N64 controller to give it vibration, something that was to be packed in as a further selling point for the game. However, Nintendo became concerned with the name of Star Fox in Germany, as there existed a company named Star Fox, and it could cause some confusion there as such. Therefore, the game was renamed to Lilith Wars for some PAL territories, and so the game came in the form of two names across the world. And soon the game launched on June 30th, 1997 in North America to critical and commercial success, launching with a massive 300,000 copies sold in 5 days, outselling even both Mario Kart 64 and Super Mario 64 in their first week, and eventually onto 1 million units by late 1997. Critics raved on about the impressive voice clips and their quality, considering they were on a cartridge and not on the usual Sony PlayStation high-quality CDs. This, along with the love for its gameplay, from its controls, bosses, and even its rumble feature, topped that off with the cinematics being loved. While Star Fox 64 cemented the series in the hearts and minds of gamers throughout the generation, and even still to this date, this was one of the only entries of the series to do so. With many attempts that followed, none of the other games could capture what may have been lightning in a bottle for Nintendo. But as more Star Fox games come, old fans return to still appreciate the stellar innovations this entry brought to the series, even if it doesn't live up to the old N64 Classic's name. But with many more Star Fox games in existence, it has a long and complex history with many features that were cut over time, all the way to the beginning of the franchise, more of which I plan to cover soon. So hit the subscribe button, for I plan to be back with more Star Fox and other games cut content and history soon. Hit the like button and comment below on what was your favorite memory of Star Fox 64 and what you wish had not been cut. Also, if you enjoyed this video, check out the history and cut content of Metroid Prime here. So everyone, thank you for watching!